Hi there, and welcome to the sew along for my newest pattern, which is Know Me pattern ME2083. And also, shout out to Know Me giving me like the best pattern numbers ever. 1983 is the year that I was born, so I feel like ending in 83 is obviously a fantastic sign. So, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Aaronica Cole, and I am the designer of these here overalls that feature obviously a little ruffle situation here. We have an invisible zipper to get into and out of these here. And then there's actually also a little belt bag that goes along with it. So the sew along today, of course, is going to be for the overalls themselves because I figured that is what was going to be the biggest thing that we wanted to do together. Now, let's jump into a little bit of my design inspiration behind these. I love overalls. That is my truth. But because my torso has typically been a little bit on the longer side for your standard ready to wear like overalls, I generally speaking did not buy them. So I figure why not make the dopest pair in the world? Now listen, your girl loves a quality placed ruffle, so I knew that I had to include a ruffle as well. And I wanted my back to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to these here straps. So the back of these here pants, the overalls themselves, are attached via button versus being attached inside of the waistband or some other way. I love the way that these are done because they add a level of flexibility so that when you're sitting down or standing up, sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, however it is that you decide to sit, you still feel like you can move and you don't feel like you have something on that is going to be restricting your movement. I love that hands down. Now, this fabric that I used in order to make these is just your standard like cotton. It is a custom print, and shout out to Julia Allison Cost for designing some of the most beautiful fabric. I saw my girl Molly wearing this fabric and I was like, you know what? This is going to be so perfect for my upcoming pattern, so I had to use it today. I actually feel like this is giving, oh, we're having a picnic in the park, and dare I say I am the garden party, okay? So I love this fabric. I love this here pattern. But again, this pattern actually comes with this belt bag that is also featured here. So I knew that I wanted to do a bag design because even though I am a garment girly, I have been really getting into bag making and have been loving it. I have made one bag before I went ahead and added this design in, and oh, it's so good. This pattern does feature, of course, belt loops in case you're like, yes, you do want to go ahead and thread your belt bag through. You can go ahead and do that. Super easy breezy. If you're like, nah, girl, I'm good, you don't have to. You can always wear it across the body, that sort of thing. This belt bag is definitely big enough to hold things like your phone, your keys, that sort of thing. It is not super huge, but also this is an easy enough pattern. If you're like, hey, I actually would like for it to be a little bit bigger, you can hack it so that it is a little bit bigger if that is what your heart desires. But again, this is the perfect little bag for you to take along with you just to hold your essentials, okay? It might even fit a little fan in there, okay? Because listen, those USB like automatic fans, those are all the rage right now. Pretty sure that it will fit into this little belt bag, all right? So again, we're doing the sew along for this here overall little number here. Now, I know that as a standard, I typically have designer notes in the middle of our sew alongs. Now, this is probably the longest sew along that I have done to date. So we are not going to be doing separate designer notes. Why? Because I actually feel like I gave enough notes just kind of in the sew along itself. So as always, if after you're done going through this, you have additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and I will give as much guidance as I possibly can. With that, let's go ahead and jump into ME 2083. Okay, so let's go ahead and review the pattern pieces that we're going to need for this pattern. We have two of the back legs here, two of the front legs, and of course we know it's the front because we do have this faux fly right here. Okay, then of course let's move on to the waistband pieces. We've got our front waistband, our back waistband. And please note that both of these are interfaced, okay? Then we have our back pocket piece, which of course has that, that V that comes down, giving it a nice finish there. And then what we have next is what we are labeling our carrier piece. And that carrier piece is actually going to serve as the belt loops. We've got 2 of our pocket facings. Then we also have 2 of our side/front pockets. We've got 1 of our pockets that goes on our bibs. Then we have, this is going to be our ruffle piece. We also have 2 of our shoulder strap pieces. This is also interfaced, so please make sure that you note that. And then of course we've got our bib piecing. Now I did go ahead and add some interfacing to this bib piecing, and the reason why is because this fabric is a little bit thinner. It is a cotton. It's a lightweight cotton, and because of the weight of the ruffle, I want to make sure that my bib is able to withstand both holding up the weight of the ruffle in addition to the pocket piece, okay? So if you're working with a lighter weight fabric, so think of like maybe a chambray or a lightweight woven as well, go ahead and you might want to use an interfacing. As far as the type of interfacing that I'm using here, I am using a lightweight interfacing, not to be confused with a featherweight or anything like that. This is a lightweight fusible interfacing. This one is the one that I got from Joann's, actually during one of their 50% off sales. In addition to your pattern pieces, you're also going to need an invisible zipper because our side zip does have an invisible zipper, in addition to buttons. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I like to do for this pattern and all of my other patterns in truth is go ahead and prep my pattern pieces that need interfacing or that need to be ironed. So I'm going to be starting out with the belt, not the belt loop, but the shoulder pieces, and we're going to be applying our interfacing to them. So that way, when they are ready to be sewn, they are ready. The other pieces that I'm going to be prepping during this time are going to be all of the pockets, so the back pocket as well as the front pocket, in addition to the waistband pieces that are also requiring some of the interfacing. Make sure that you're using your interfacing and applying your interfacing the way that your manufacturer has directed you to. Now, this can be different depending upon what interfacing that you are using, and you want to make sure that it adheres properly so that way when you're wearing, you don't have to worry about anything coming undone. Also, make sure that you are using a quality interfacing and that you are pressing your interfacing, not ironing. That's going to be the difference between your garment actually having wrinkles interfaced into it and it being excellent. So again, we're going to use this opportunity to go ahead and prepare our pattern pieces, specifically the 2 back pockets and any of the interfacings or any of the pattern pieces that are requiring interfacing, okay? When working with interfacing, as a reminder, make sure that your fabric is completely pressed out, because if you don't, again, you'll be interfacing in those wrinkles there, and that is not something that you want. So just make sure that you've gone ahead and pre-pressed your fabric pieces, even if you've already pressed your actual even if you've already pressed the fabric out before cutting, go ahead and just do another press before you go ahead and apply the interfacing, just to make sure that that interfacing is on there perfect. One of my favorite tools to use when it comes to pressing out accurate hems as well as memory pressing things is this Dress Easy hem. It's really fantastic because you can actually iron over it as well as get a really accurate press when it comes time to getting one. So because my back pockets as well as my front pockets are a double fold over, I'm going to go ahead and fold it down once before I fold it over again, just to kind of make sure that we don't have any fraying in this pocket area. And that Dritz makes it very, very easy. You can use it there. You can also use it on the sides when it comes time to determining, because they also have the markings here for what measurement that is. So we're doing a measurement of 5/8 for this pocket. And so I can just simply line it up with that tool. Just make sure that you're being careful of that seam, because that seam will really come up and obviously burn the hell up out of your hand. And that's not even what we want. So just to help make things a little bit easier, this tool is truly, truly, truly fantastic. Okay, so our next step, or rather our first step, is we're going to go ahead and attach our pockets to our front piece. So we have our front piece here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just put our right sides together. And I'm going to be using the actual right sides of the fabric. Because it's your pocket piece, it doesn't actually matter. But I'm going to be placing the right side of my fabric against each other. So it's going to be this way. So we're going to go ahead and put a stitch in here. And then we'll be taking the additional piece, the additional pocket piece, which is the pocket piece that is actually going to be showing. So after we put in this stitch here, we're going to flip it out, and then we're going to be putting the right sides together for our additional pocket piece and sewing it this way. Once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and do a quick top stitch to hold these pocket pieces in place. For today's video, I will be utilizing both my Bernina L890, which is a cover stitch combo machine, so I don't need to separate or finish my seam separately. I'll also be using a Bernina B590 as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started sewing. As a reminder, the seam allowance for this pattern is 5/8 seam allowance unless it's been otherwise stated in the directions. So make sure that your machine has been adjusted to accommodate that before you get started stitching, because you would hate to go ahead and actually mess that up. That first stitch is now done, attaching that pocket piece here. So now we're going to go ahead and grab the other pocket piece that matches. And if you did not mark your pattern pieces or put your notches on here, that's okay. Just make sure that your bottom piece of your pocket, that curve, lines up together, and everything else will be just fine. When we do our top stitch, or rather our understitch, whichever one you prefer, we're going to be going over to my other machine to go ahead and do that. We will not be doing that on this machine. And as you're sewing around the curve, something to be mindful of is just slow down so that you can go ahead and make sure that you are not taking too much off the pocket piece and you're easing around that curve. Sometimes sewing around curves can be a little hard for people. Just go slow, or use as many pins or clips as you need in order to make it so that it is doable for you. So now we have the actual full pocket installed, and so you can see here exactly how this will function. Hand goes in here. So I've top stitched each of the pocket pieces, and I have gone ahead and basted these pieces together, the pocket pieces, so that they are now functioning as one complete piece. The next step that we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to attach our two front pieces together at this crotch curve. So if you are someone who likes to pin or clip things together, go ahead and do that. We are going to be doing this with the serger because we want to make sure that none of this fraying stays. So I'm going to be sewing straight down this line, coming in and then coming in together again to finish out this crotch curve piece. Again, make sure that your seam allowances are set on whatever machine that it is that you're using to make sure that they stay where they are supposed to. I like to finish with one pattern piece or one set of pieces before moving on to the next, just because I feel like it helps my process a little bit. As I go around this curve, I am going to go ahead and disengage my knife because I don't want to cut any of that fabric off. It also allows me to see the fabric a little bit better as it's going through. And so I did go ahead and just re-engage that knife again because we were done sewing around that curve. Okay, and so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our garment over to the sewing machine, and I've gone ahead and I've made my markings here. So you can see that I've marked a notch right here, and this is to line up my waistband piece, and this is going to be my seam line. So as a reminder, we're making a faux fly front, and in order for us to go ahead and make sure that we're able to do that, we're going to, sorry, just trimming this down because I don't need these. So we're going to do our actual seam straight down here. And so I have gone ahead and marked that so that way that is easier for me to do. And we will be doing that on the sewing machine. I've lined up my needle with that marking that I placed on here, and I'm going to go ahead and just sew that new seam line down here. And of course, I'm going to gradually grade or bring this curve into the seam that I created right here over on my machine. Now, when I made my muslin of this pattern, I did learn that I needed to take this in slightly. So what I've done is I have made those accommodations here. Now we're going to go ahead and press out this here fly front so that it is nice and flush with the left side of the pant. It's time to go ahead and put that top stitch of that faux fly front in here. The first stitch I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this first chain stitch that I have here. So up close so that you can see that it's right there. So that's the first one that I'm going to do. And then I'm going to use a 1/4 inch in between the next one that I do, which will be right here. One of the things that you can also do if you want to top stitch with the actual garment facing you and the right side up is if you have a twin needle, you could easily accomplish this by using that twin needle as opposed to stitching this twice. I do find it a little bit easier for me to go ahead and stitch it with my fly front actually down because it makes it easier for me to see that line that I'm actually following. And I like that a lot better. And as you hit that curve, again, just slow down and it will make that easier. Also, if you want to, you can go ahead and adjust your stitch length to being longer than your traditional construction length. For me, I construct my garments at 2.5. You can lengthen this to be about 3 if that is something that you would like. And we're stitching all the way to that seam line. And then you're going to go ahead and back stitch just to reinforce. Not that we're actually going to be like, obviously unzipping anything, but you know, for looks. And so I am going to go ahead and do that one more time. Again, moving a 1/4 inch away. And I think I'm actually going to move a 1/4 inch closer only because I did make this fly front a little bit wider because I did need less space in between. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just a little bit closer in. And now, even though I've already done this, I'm still making sure that my fabric is laying flat by kind of pulling it out gently with my hands, just to ensure that that flatness is there, because I don't want any bunching. And again, now we're going around that curve, and I'm making sure that I'm going as slow as I need to in order to accomplish what I would like. And again, we're going to go ahead and finish that stitch off nice and strong. And then we'll flip it out to make sure that it looks good. And so this is what that top stitch is looking like here. And in my humble opinion, it looks fantastic. So let's go ahead and put our front pieces of pattern, or our front pants aside. And now it's time for us to work on the back side of the pattern. So our back pieces feature a dart. The first thing that we're going to be doing is sewing the dart. As you can see, I have my dart marked right here. My dart is a little bit bigger because I did do a full booty adjustment on the back of my pants. After we go ahead and add our darts in, we're going to take the pocket pieces that we have already pressed out beautifully, and then we're going to find our marking that should actually be on the outside of the fabric, not the inside of the fabric, to line these up with. Okay, so we're going to have to do our dart first though. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then we'll come back and pin these pieces together. So that way we can have absolution with where our pocket pieces go. So now that we've gone ahead and added our dart in, again, mine is like extra darted. You should have already gone ahead and sewn your pocket piece down. So you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you line up your pocket with the with the markings that you put on your pant piece. So now I don't necessarily love using pins. Y'all already know this, but I do feel like pinning your pocket into place is going to be the difference between that garment looking so good, right? And those pockets being amazing and it not. Also, when you're adding in your dart, it's going to initially give that, and you can see like my fabric moving here, it's going to initially give a lot of that 3D, that extra space that, you know, the nature of darts are. And I will be honest that with the way that my darts are, because of my full booty adjustment, I do have to do a little bit more fabric manipulation in order for me to be able to get that fabric laying down flat enough for me to even pin it into place. So if you're someone who has to do that kind of adjustment, this pinning is going to be key. But also, we've already done a fantastic job pressing this into place. So getting that, getting this fabric piece or getting this pocket piece into place, I won't say easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, but it becomes a little bit easier because it's already been pressed into place. So again, pressing that pocket piece, and not just pressing it down, but also getting a really good press is key to that pocket install, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and add another pin in here towards this bottom area so that it holds it straight down. We're gonna do this on both sides, and then we're going to be sewing around this here perimeter, these three sides, to go ahead and put that in place. So before you sew, go ahead and make sure that as you've pinned your pocket pieces together, go ahead and just line them up to make sure that they're giving even, okay? So, because we don't want any lopsided pockets. So after adding the pockets, which are right here, I did go ahead and sew down that center crotch seam in the back. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead with my right sides facing together for the front and back pieces of my fabrics or pant pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and sew down the side seams. Again, as a reminder, we're going to be putting in an invisible seam on the left-hand side, so I will not be sewing completely down this side. I will, however, be sewing down completely down the right side, as well as the entire crotch curve seam. I will be doing this again on my Bernina L890. If you do not have a serger, just make sure that you're finishing your seams with a zigzag stitch or a different stitch on your sewing machine to make sure that there is no fraying that happens. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, so now it's time for us to work on our waistband. Using your pattern pieces that have been interfaced, we're going to go ahead and put our right sides together, and we're only going to be sewing down the right side. Again, because we're putting in an invisible zipper on our left side, we only want to be sewing down the right side. So we're gonna go ahead and take this to the machine and do that. I've gone ahead and I've labeled my front waistband with this here clip just so that I can keep track of it better. So you might want to go ahead and find a label that works for you, whether it's with a clip or possibly a pin, so that way you know exactly which piece is attaching to where. Also, as we can see, the back piece is definitely shorter than the front piece. So that is also something that is a differentiator. The reason why these are curved up like this is because these are contoured waistbands. So we have our back. And the reason why we had those darts is to kind of give us some more definition in that back area, and our waistband speaks to that as well. So now again, we're just going to go ahead and stitch that one side, and then we're going to begin the attachment to the actual pant piece. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've sewn our waistbands together again. This is our front piece. Now it's time for us to go ahead and line this up, pin, clip, etc. it in place, so that way we can go ahead and get a nice eased in waistband. I'm going to go ahead and be using clips to go ahead and clip this waistband together. Again, our right sides are facing each other, and the widest side of the waistband is going to be going up against the pant part. So whether you use pins or clips, it doesn't actually matter. You just want to make sure that you're easing that waistband into place, so that way you know that it fits. If it does not fit, which it might, on my very first one, I definitely found that I had to take some of my seams in a little bit in order for it to fit, because I had made my adjustments. That's fine. Pinning this or clipping this into place will allow you to take the time to make those adjustments to your bottom piece to ensure that this eases in seamlessly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this, and then we will go ahead and put our waistband on with the sewing machine. So again, just going around here and making sure that these pieces are nicely eased in. Once you've made sure that that waistband eased on perfectly, it's time to go ahead and do your stitch on your belt loop pieces. Once you've actually stitched it in place, you're going to be cutting these belt loops into 4 inches. So your total belt loop should be a total of 20 inches because we're going to have 5 belt loops. So I'm just cutting mine again for just using my previous one as the guide. And we end up with a total of the 5 belt loops. And essentially, to create the belt loop piece, we're just basically making binding. So we're folding it in and getting quarters. So here are your 5 belt loops, and we're going to go ahead and clip these into place on our pant piece. Okay, so this is a 9-inch invisible zipper that we're going to be putting in. Again, we have our waistband perfectly matched up, as we can see right here. And as a reminder, we're going to be doing right sides together. So when you install that waistband, you do want to make sure that the right sides are in fact together. So again, you can pin or clip this in place. If you do have a invisible zipper foot, I highly recommend using it. If you do not have one, then you can just use your normal zipper foot to go ahead and install this. As we go ahead and put our zipper on the inside, I will be using a zipper install foot simply because I have one. And we're going to be lining this up, this cut area up here at the top of the zipper. We're going to line this right on up with the top of our waistband. Why? Because we're going to also be adding, of course, our waistband facing. I'll be still facing, so the inside of my fabric is going to look the exact same. And that's, of course, going to fully enclose that seam. And then when we flip it out, it'll line up perfectly. So we're going to go ahead to the machine and do our zipper install for this invisible zipper now. So one of the main differences between your basic zipper foot, which is this one right here, and your invisible zipper foot is your invisible zipper foot actually has these little grooves that allow for you to get as close as possible to that seam or to that zipper tape without actually going over it. So that's the main difference between your regular zipper foot as well as your invisible zipper foot. So again, we're going to be lining our right sides up together. And again, if you feel the need to go ahead and pin or clip this into place, go ahead and do that now. I'm going to just go ahead and not do that. As of right now, my needle point is at 0, so I am going to move it over. I'm going to put it at a -2. And I'm making sure that my zipper is lined up with the grooves. You can see what I mean. We have these grooves right here. This is where I'm lining that groove up with, so that again, I can get as close as possible with my foot. And while you can, of course, lift your foot up while you're sewing, I really don't recommend it. Why? Because it'll just like completely undo all the work that you did in lining it up. And I know I just did, but I'm doing that just so that I can actually stick a pin in towards the bottom of this so that it will stay not stretched out, but so that there's enough tension on this here, on the zipper itself as I'm pulling it through. And so this is as far as I can sew down, because this is where my zipper foot, like the zipper foot or the zipper piece is. So I am going to just go ahead and close that off. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And of course, when this is okay, so we went ahead and finished up that side seam for the pant leg, and our pants are currently finished for the moment. Now we're going to move on to the bib. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our pressed ruffle piece and we're going to ruffle this. So I'm going to go over the next couple of steps because I'm going to do them all at the sewing machine. So we're going to be ruffling this. After we ruffle this, we're going to take our interface piece. Now again, remember, I decided to interface my front piece together. The reason why is because this material is very lightweight, and I just wanted to make sure that when it came time for me to have all of my ruffles and pockets on here, I had enough support for that. After we go ahead and ruffle it, we're going to go ahead and put our front pocket onto our we're going to put our front pocket onto our front bib piece that does have the interfacing again, because I do want that to hold up. Then from there, we're going to take our ruffle piece that will be ruffled at the time, evenly space it out along the ruffle, of course, leaving that area where the small dots are ruffle free, and that's down at this area. Okay, so let's go ahead and head on to the machine and take care of these next couple of steps. Okay, so this step does require a lot of clips, but you're going to want to make sure that you stretch out that ruffled area all the way around your bib piece. So now that we've done that, we're going to take the other side of the bib piece and we're going to put this on here and sew all the way around, attaching both the bib pieces together. So this is the facing as well as our main fabric and our ruffle piece. Okay, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you clip around your edges, just to make sure that everything is nice and even, and so that you don't have anything that looks a little off, right? Because that's gonna affect things. So we're gonna flip this out, and then we're gonna press it down because we wanna make sure that we have eliminated the bulk out of the seam to give us a nice, smooth, and even finish. So I'm gonna go ahead and really press and get into where these ruffles are, making sure that I get them as flat as I can, because this is going to make a huge difference in how our garment lays. So we're going to do this side as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit this with a top stitch as well. Again, just making sure that the way that we've stitched this, it lays flat. So we're going to go ahead and put a top stitch around where the ruffling area is before we go ahead and begin to attach our bib to our pant piece. Now that we've done our top stitch on our bib piece, what we're going to do is we're going to end up finding the center pieces, or rather the center in both our bib piece. So I'm going to mark this with a clip, and then we're also going to find the center piece on our center front waistband as well. And it's going to be time for us to go ahead and we're going to place this on top, our bib on top of this waistband area. So I already actually have a good idea of where this center is because we're following obviously the center inseam, or rather the center seam of the pant. So now I'm just going to line this up here, because what we're going to do is we're going to be putting our waistband facing on top of this. So that way when we flip it up, we have it attached together and there will be no top stitch necessary or any kind of additional anything. So I'm going to go ahead and baste this into place right now. Now that that has been basted into place, we're going to take our facing pieces for our waistband. Again, remember that the front waistband is going to be longer than the back waistband. We're going to place these right sides together. We're going to go ahead and sew the right side, leaving the left side open because we're going to go ahead and fully enclose that. After we sew this, we're going to press the bottom piece, so this piece here, up 1/2 of an inch. So that way we're ready to go ahead and install this waistband as well. Now we want this invisible zipper to be completely enclosed, like I said before. So I'm going to go ahead and start my stitch by just moving about 1/2 of an inch in. And again, my right sides are together. I'm going to sew all the way down to where I folded up. And the reason why is because when I'm done and I fold this out, look at how beautiful that's going to look. Fully enclosed right there. It's going to be fantastic. But now we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around this waistband facing, attaching it to the actual waistband using that same seam allowance of that 5/8. So to finish this waistband, we're going to be stitching in the ditch. Make sure that you've lined up your needle along with the seam, and then just go ahead and get on in there. You do not have to use the 2.5 stitch. You can go ahead and lengthen that stitch if you would like to. And go ahead and make sure that you are stitching in the ditch all the way around, making sure that you pull up your belt loops and your seam to expose where that is supposed to be going into. One of the feet that you can use to help with this step is by using a blind stitch foot that can help maintain that stitch in the actual ditch. Also, just making sure that the center of your foot lines up with the actual seam that you are trying to stitch into. Make sure that you're just going slow. Going slow will also help you to make sure that you are stitching inside of there. You can also pin your facing down to your actual main fabric just to ensure that you catch it at all times, or you can just stop a couple of times through just to make sure that you are in fact catching that inside so that your facing stays down. This is a really great opportunity to use either a matching thread if you're like, I want it to be matchy-matchy, or to use a contrasting thread for a little pop of color. And by little, I do mean little because we are stitching in the ditch, so there's not really much that will be seen. Because of the fabric choice that I've used, I could have used a plethora of colors. I have chosen to just stick with a nice basic white stitch though, or white fabric, or I'm sorry, white thread. Can't even get my words together. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up before it's time for us to move on to the straps. So now we're going to go ahead and stitch around this entire length of this strap using, let's line that up properly. Now, I don't like to iron mine beforehand because I feel like it's harder for me to turn, but if you want to press yours in half, go ahead and do that. I'm going to just go ahead and make sure that mine is lined up, or rather halved. And then as I get to the middle, the center of this strap, I'm going to leave a little spot open so that I can use that to actually turn this right side out. And I feel like that'll be a lot easier. I'm going to leave about 2 inches open to make it easy for me to go ahead and turn this strap right side out. And then we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. So I'm going ahead and I'm stopping my stitch here. I'm going to go ahead and move my strap down those 2 inches, and I'm eyeballing it. It's really about what you feel like you can turn your fabric in with. I do feel like because this fabric has been interfaced, it's not going to be as easy to turn as uninterfaced fabric. So that's something to consider in deciding how large that hole is that you leave open. Now also, the angled piece or the angled part is going to be towards the back of the garment. That is going to attach via button back there. So once we turn this, we're going to be attaching buttons, as well as adding our buttonholes into the straps. Okay, so now it's time for us to put on our buttons. I've gone ahead and decided on my buttons right here. So I have a wooden button, which I absolutely love. We have 2 buttons that are going onto the actual back part of the pants, and then 2 buttons that are going onto the straps themselves. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in our buttonholes. For this step, you are going to need your buttonhole foot, unless you're a glutton for punishment and you are someone who wants to just hand sew it, or you know another method. Again, I will be doing using my foot. Obviously on my machine I actually get to choose what my distance is, so I'm just going to resize my buttonhole based upon the buttons that I plan on using on this here garment. I am going to be using these snazzier buttons that kind of had these like lines on them on the front. It does feel like one is smaller, so I am going to resize it to make sure that it does fit that one. We've got 2 buttonholes to do on the front of the garment, so we're going to start there. I did go ahead and label where my start point was for this buttonhole. Now I just have to re-find it. Of course, I did such a great job marking it that it's not jumping out on that side. It is jumping out on this side though. So I'm going to just go ahead and using my needle to help me find my starting point, and just going to go ahead and let my machine do what it does. So I'm going to do this 3 more times. And as we can see here, we've got the buttonhole. I'm going to do this 3 more times before I go ahead and add my buttons. I'm going to go ahead and add the buttons to the back of my pants before I do the buttons on my actual shirt. And the reason, or the actual top, and the reason why is because I want to make sure that I measure properly for what is going to feel right. So again, I've gone ahead and marked out where these buttons are going to go, and the directions say to hand sew. I don't hand sew buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and use my buttonhole foot to go ahead and put these buttons in. They are going on the inside of the pant. So it's almost like a little invisible button situation. And I did do the button stitch twice because I want it to be nice and reinforced. We don't want to have any surprises happening when I am wearing this. There's no need for anything to come undone. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just put my second button in. And then I'm going to try it on to see exactly where I would like for my buttons to fit on top of my bib, because I do want to make sure that that bib area has a good fit, because this was designed to be able to wear it either with a shirt or without a shirt, depending upon what it is that your style is. So I want to make sure that even as I'm wearing it, I do have that option. And I do know that sometimes I will need to add length, sometimes I need to subtract length. And so I just want to make sure that I get that best fit. So now that these buttons are in, I'm going to go ahead and attach my straps in here. Again, many thanks for purchasing my pattern ME2083. And by now, I hope that you have made it through the sew along and you have your own completed overalls. Now, again, one of the things that I do want to highlight, of course, is these pockets were designed to hold things, okay? So don't be afraid to use them, all right, friends? And with that, again, I can't thank you enough for your support. It always means the world to me. I do hope that you know that these overalls can be worn with or without a shirt. That was part of the design, because I wanted you all, as you can see here, I don't look like I have on a shirt, but I definitely have on a bra. And that was something that was important to me because, y'all, it gets hot out there and I'm all for showing a little bit of skin, obviously. So again, many thanks for purchasing my pattern. I hope that this sew along was really helpful as far as any kind of things that you felt like were going to get you tripped up. And with that, I cannot wait to see your make. So make sure that you tag me in the things that you make, the things that you style, because all of that, especially the hacks, are so inspiring to me. Until next time.